The white roses in my bouquet trembled, each petal a witness to the moment my perfect day shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. I'd spent months dreaming of this moment, standing at the altar in my designer gown, ready to say "I do" to Derek. The string quartet had just finished their final notes when it happened. "Stop this wedding." Elaine's voice cut through the chapel like a blade. My future mother-in-law stood in her powder blue suit, her face a mask of righteous indignation. "I cannot allow this farce to continue. I'm Luna, and this was supposed to be the happiest day of my life." The guests started murmuring. I could feel their eyes boring into me, hungry for drama. My 5-year-old daughter Lily clutched her flower basket tighter, her bottom lip quivering. "Mother, what are you doing?" Derek's voice was tight, controlled. "Protecting you, darling." Elaine's heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached. "Your bride has been systematically undermining my authority in the company, stealing confidential information, trying to push me out." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's ridiculous. I would never—" "I have proof." Elaine pulled out her phone, her red lacquered nails tapping the screen. "Emails, documents, all traced back to you." "Derek," I turned to him, reaching for his hand. "She's lying. You know me." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Derek's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. Then it happened. His hand connected with my cheek, in a sharp crack that echoed through the chapel. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My best friend Sophie jumped up from the front pew, but I held up my hand to stop her. The sting spread across my face, but the pain in my heart was worse. "How dare you accuse my mother of lying?" Derek's voice was ice. "After everything she's done for us?" Lily started crying, and Sophie quickly scooped her up, shielding her from the scene. I stood there, frozen, as my world imploded. "I think we're done here." Elaine's smile was triumphant. "Derek, come along." "Daddy?" Lily's small voice broke through the chaos. Derek didn't even look at her. I watched him walk away, following his mother like he always had, the perfect, dutiful son. The man I thought I knew. The father who just abandoned his daughter at the altar. "Luna, let's go." Sophie's hand was warm on my arm. "This isn't over." But it was. The wedding was over. My relationship was over. My trust in love and family, shattered like the champagne glasses that would never be raised in celebration. As Sophie led me down the aisle, past the whispers and pitying looks, past the flowers and ribbons that now seemed like cruel decorations for my public humiliation, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was transforming into something darker, something that tasted like metal and burned like acid. "I'll need your help," I whispered to Sophie as we reached the church doors. "And I'll need Marcus." "The tech guy, why?" I touched my cheek where Derek's hand had left its mark. "Because Elaine Brooks is going to learn what it feels like to lose everything she loves. And her precious son is going to learn that some betrayals can never be forgiven." Lily's small hand slipped into mine, and I squeezed it gently. For her, I would make them pay. For her, I would tear down their empire piece by piece until there was nothing left but ashes. The summer sun was bright outside the chapel, but I felt cold. The kind of cold that settles in your bones and turns your heart to steel. The kind of cold that makes you capable of anything. 3 days after the wedding disaster, I sat in Sophie's kitchen, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Derek, all within the last hour. Each one made my hand shake a little more. "He's at it again," Sophie said, sliding a glass of wine across the counter. "What did the text say?" I unlocked my screen. "The usual. He's sorry. He was shocked. His mother had evidence. He wants to talk." My finger hovered over the delete button. Funny how he couldn't even look at Lily when she cried for him at the church. The doorbell rang. Sophie checked the security camera and tensed. "It's Elaine." My wineglass froze halfway to my lips. "How did she find us?" "Luna." Elaine's voice carried through the door. "I know you're in there. We need to discuss this situation like adults." I moved to the hallway, pressing my ear against the wood. "There's nothing to discuss. You destroyed my wedding with lies. Lies? She laughed, that practiced society laugh that always made my skin crawl. Darling, I have proof. Those company documents you accessed, the confidential files you copied. The timestamps don't lie. My stomach dropped. I hadn't accessed any files. I didn't even have that level of clearance. But something in her voice made me pause. She sounded too confident, too prepared. I'm calling the police, Sophie whispered, phone in hand. I stopped her. Wait, I want to hear this. Luna, Elaine continued, her voice honey-sweet poison. Derek is willing to forgive you. We can still salvage the situation. Think of Lily. She needs her father. The father who hit me in front of the entire congregation. Silence. Then, he reacted poorly. But you provoked him, dear. You know how protective he is of me. The pieces started falling into place. The accusations, the convenient evidence, the way Derek didn't even question his mother's claims. When did you start planning this, Elaine? My voice was steady now. Was it when I questioned those strange transfers in the company accounts? Or when I noticed Derek signing documents without reading them? Another pause, longer this time. I'm trying to help you, Luna. Don't make this difficult. Like you helped Derek's first girlfriend? The one who mysteriously got that job offer across the country. I pressed my palm against the door. Or his college roommate, who suddenly transferred schools after asking too many questions about the family business. You've been digging. The honey was gone from her voice. That's dangerous, dear, especially for a single mother. Sophie grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. I squeezed her hand, letting her know I heard the threat loud and clear. Goodbye, Elaine. This isn't over, she called through the door. Derek will be filing for custody next week. We have evidence of your unstable behavior. Her heels clicked away down the hallway. I waited until the sound faded before sliding down to the floor, my legs finally giving out. Luna, Sophie sat beside me. We need to call Marcus now. Why? Because I've seen this before. The way she operates, the threats, the manufactured evidence. She pulled out her phone. Marcus used to work IT for their company. He left after... Well, he needs to tell you himself. But he knows things about the Brooks family. Things that could help us. I thought about Lily, sleeping upstairs in Sophie's guest room. About how she'd asked for her daddy every night since the wedding. About how Derek hadn't even tried to see her, just sent messages through his lawyer. Make the call, Sophie dialed, putting it on speaker. A male voice answered, gravelly with sleep. This better be good, Soph. Remember that favor you owe me? I'm calling it in. It's about Elaine Brooks. Silence crackled over the line. Then, give me an hour. Don't use your phones or computers until I get there. And Sophie, make sure you're not being watched. The call ended. Sophie looked at me, her expression grim. Still want to go down this road? I touched my cheek where Derek's handprint had faded, but the memory still burned. They're trying to take my daughter. I'll go down any road I have to. Through the window, I watched a black car pull away from the curb. One of Elaine's drivers, no doubt. The game was already in play, whether I was ready or not. Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard, his face illuminated by 3 monitors in his dimly lit apartment. Your husband's an idiot who never changes his passwords, he muttered, eyes scanning lines of code. And his mother's even worse, using her grandson's birthday for everything. I leaned closer, watching email after email populate the screen. Can they trace this back to us? Not through my setup. He glanced at Sophie, who stood guard by the window. But we need to move fast. Their security team does weekly sweeps. The first email made my blood run cold. It was from Elaine to Derek, dated 3 months before our wedding. The girl is becoming problematic. She's asking questions about the offshore accounts. Handle it, or I will. There's more, Marcus said, pulling up another thread. Look at the timestamps on these documents, the ones Elaine accused you of stealing. They were accessed using Derek's credentials while you were at Lily's dance recital. Sophie moved from the window. They set you up. Wait. Marcus held up his hand, clicking through more files. Holy shit. Luna, you need to see this. The screen showed a series of transfers, millions moving through shell companies, each one authorized by Derek's electronic signature. But the dates were wrong. Some were from times I knew he was with me, others from when he was supposedly in meetings. His mother's been forging his signatures, I whispered. He's not just controlled by her, he's her puppet. Marcus nodded grimly. And her fall guy if things go south. Every illegal transaction has his name on it, not hers. My phone buzzed. Another text from Derek. Please come home, we can work this out. Lily needs us both. Don't respond, Marcus warned. They're probably tracking your... He stopped, face going pale as he stared at one of the monitors. Shit, shit, shit. What is it? They're not just after custody anymore. He turned the screen toward me. They're building a case to have you declared unfit. Look at these medical records they've fabricated. History of mental instability, dangerous behavior, substance abuse. The room started spinning. I gripped the desk to steady myself. They can't do that. There are laws. Laws mean nothing to people with enough money and influence, Sophie cut in. Marcus, what about that thing you mentioned? From when you worked there? He ran a hand through his hair. I found irregularities in their accounting system, started digging deeper. Next thing I knew, police were at my door with drug charges. Charges that disappeared the moment I resigned and signed an NDA. But you kept proof, Sophie pressed. Some, enough to show a pattern. He looked at me. But using it means war. They'll come at you with everything they have. I thought about Lily, about how Elaine had already started poisoning her against me with subtle comments and manufactured concerns, about how Derek stood by and watched it happen. Show me everything, I said. For the next hour, Marcus unveiled the extent of their corruption. Tax evasion, blackmail, destroyed careers, lives ruined through carefully orchestrated scandals, all orchestrated by Elaine, all pinned on others. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. About Derek's father's death. The insurance investigation was buried, but I found... A sharp knock at the door cut him off. We froze. Police, open up! Marcus immediately started wiping drives. Sophie grabbed my arm. Fire escape, now! The evidence is already backed up, Marcus hissed, shoving a small drive into my hand. Go, I'll hold them off. As Sophie pulled me toward the window, I heard the door splinter. Marcus's voice carried over the chaos. Officers, I can explain everything. We climbed down the fire escape in the dark, my heart pounding with each metallic clang. At street level, Sophie pushed me into her car. They're moving faster than we expected, she said, starting the engine. We need to get Lily and disappear for a while. I clutched the drive in my palm, feeling its edges bite into my skin. No more running, no more hiding. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized years ago. It's time to fight fire with fire. Who are you calling? The reporter who covered Derek's father's death. The one who always suspected there was more to the story. I took a deep breath as the line connected. It's time to show the world who Elaine Brooks really is. The reporter, Claire, set her coffee cup down with a sharp click. Let me get this straight. You're telling me Elaine Brooks orchestrated her husband's death for the insurance payout. We sat in a private booth at a diner 30 miles outside the city. Sophie kept watch near the window while I spread out Marcus's evidence on the sticky table. The police report says accident. The insurance investigation suggests otherwise. I slid the drive across to her. But that's just the beginning. Claire's eyes narrowed. Why come to me now? Because they're trying to take my daughter. My voice cracked, but I forced myself steady. And because you were right 15 years ago when you wrote that article questioning James Brooks's death. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Marcus made bail. They're watching his apartment. Claire was scrolling through the files on her laptop, her expression darkening. These financial records, the shell companies. Jesus. She looked up. You know they'll come after you with everything they have. They already are. I pulled out the custody papers I'd been served that morning. They're claiming I'm mentally unstable, a danger to my child. Luna. Sophie's voice was tight. Derek just pulled up outside. My heart stopped. How did he— He's not alone, Sophie added. Elaine's with him. Claire quickly packed up her laptop. Back exit, now. But we were too late. Derek's familiar silhouette filled the doorway, Elaine's smaller frame beside him. They spotted us immediately. Luna, sweetheart. Derek's voice carried across the diner, making other customers turn. We're worried about you. This behavior, it's exactly what we were talking about. I stood my ground as they approached. Where's Lily? Safe, Elaine answered smoothly. With people who can provide stability. She noticed Claire and something flickered in her eyes. Miss Wilson, still chasing conspiracy theories? Still destroying lives, Mrs. Brooks, Claire countered. Derek reached for my arm. Come home, we can get you help. I jerked away. Like you helped your father? The color drained from his face. What? Show him, I told Claire. She turned her laptop around, displaying the insurance investigator's suppressed report. Derek's eyes scanned the screen, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. Mother? His voice was barely a whisper. What is this? Obvious fabrications, Elaine snapped, but her perfectly manicured nails dug into her designer purse. Your wife is clearly unwell, spreading these vicious lies, like the lies about me stealing company documents, I cut in, or the fabricated medical records you're using to take my daughter. Other diners were openly staring now. Elaine's composed mask cracked slightly. Derek, handle this, she hissed. But Derek was still reading, scrolling through years of financial records, forged signatures, buried evidence. You told me Father's death was an accident, that the brake failure— Everything I did was for you. Elaine's voice turned sharp. For our family's legacy. Your father was weak, just like you're being weak now. The diner had gone silent. Even the cook behind the counter stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. Where is my daughter? I demanded again. Elaine's lips curved into a cruel smile. Safe from your influence. And by the time the courts see these medical records— You mean these records? Claire held up her phone. The ones I just emailed to every major news outlet, along with proof they were fabricated. The color drained from Elaine's face. It's over, I said quietly. The truth about James, the financial fraud, everything. By morning, everyone will know. Derek looked between his mother and me, years of manipulation finally cracking his perfect son facade. The offshore accounts, the signatures. That was you? She made you the fall guy, I told him. Every illegal transaction is in your name. His hand started shaking. Where is Lily? He asked his mother, his voice dangerous. For the first time, I saw real fear in Elaine Brooks's eyes. Derek, she started. Where is my daughter? He advanced on her, and for a moment I saw James Brooks's death reflected in her flinch. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. Got her. Lily's safe. Meeting point B. I backed toward the door, Sophie and Claire flanking me. The police will have questions about James, I said. I suggest you both get lawyers. As we left, I heard Derek's voice break. How could you, Mother? The sound of shattering glass followed us into the night. The sound of a carefully constructed empire finally beginning to fall. Marcus's safe house turned out to be a cramped apartment above a Chinese restaurant. Lily slept on the worn couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, while I watched breaking news alerts flash across my phone. The Brooks family scandal was exploding. They're freezing accounts, Marcus said, typing furiously at his laptop. Elaine's trying to move assets offshore, but Claire's article hit too fast. The feds are already involved. Sophie paced by the window, periodically checking the street below. Derek's been calling me non-stop. Says he wants to help. Help himself, maybe. I ran my fingers through Lily's hair as she stirred in her sleep. He had years to choose differently. My phone lit up with a message from Claire. New source came forward. Former Brooks employee claims James's brake lines were deliberately cut. Police reopening investigation. Another text followed immediately. Elaine's assistant talking. Says there's a hidden safe in the mansion. More documents. I looked at Marcus. Can you get us in? The mansion? He shook his head. Security's too tight. Unless... He glanced at Sophie, something unspoken passing between them. No, Sophie said firmly. It's too dangerous. What? I demanded. Marcus sighed. I still have access codes from when I worked there, but they're probably watching for any system breaches. Tell her the rest, Sophie pressed. The assistant who's talking, that was my sister. Marcus's voice cracked. After I left the company, Elaine blackmailed her into staying, used her medical history against her. He swallowed hard. She killed herself last year. The room went silent except for Lily's soft breathing. Everything clicked into place. Marcus's determination to help, Sophie's protectiveness of him, the personal stake in bringing down the Brooks empire. My phone buzzed again. Derek. I know where the safe is, his message read. Let me help make this right. Sophie read over my shoulder. It's a trap. Maybe. I stood up, decision crystallizing. Or maybe he's finally choosing a side. Luna, no. Marcus grabbed my arm. You can't trust him. I don't. I gently pulled free. But I trust his anger. You saw his face when he learned about his father. A notification popped up. Breaking news about Brooks Industries stock plummeting. Another about federal agents at the corporate offices. The safe could have everything, I said. Proof about James, other victims like your sister. Enough to make sure Elaine never hurts anyone again. And if Derek's playing you, Sophie challenged, if Elaine's using him as bait, I looked at Lily, remembering how Elaine had tried to take her, how she'd manipulated her own son for decades. Then I'll deal with them both. My phone buzzed with coordinates from Derek, an abandoned parking garage. I'm coming with you, Sophie said. No. I handed her a sealed envelope. If anything happens, this has everything Claire needs to finish the story. Take care of Lily. Marcus stood. At least let me hack their security feeds. Give you eyes inside. Too risky. They'll be watching for that. I kissed Lily's forehead, breathing in her sweet, familiar scent. Sometimes the only way to end things is face to face. As I reached the door, Sophie caught my arm. Luna, revenge won't bring Marcus's sister back. It won't undo what they did to you. This isn't about revenge anymore. I met her eyes. It's about making sure they can't hurt anyone else. The night air was thick with approaching rain as I headed to my car. Another text from Derek lit up my phone. Come alone. Last chance to protect Lily from what's coming. I started the engine, checking my rearview mirror. A black SUV pulled out 2 blocks behind me. Elaine's security detail, no doubt. Let them follow. Let them think they were herding me exactly where they wanted. They didn't know about the evidence Claire was publishing hourly. Didn't know about the federal agents closing in. Didn't know that sometimes the perfect trap is the one you walk into willingly, eyes wide open. I touched my cheek where Derek had slapped me at the wedding, feeling the phantom sting of betrayal. By morning, the Brooks empire would be ashes. The only question was whether Derek would burn with it, or finally break free of his mother's web. The parking garage loomed ahead, a concrete monster in the darkness. Time to finish what they started. The parking garage echoed with my footsteps as I climbed to the 4th level. Derek stood alone by a concrete pillar, his suit wrinkled, his eyes hollow. No sign of Elaine or her security detail, but I felt their presence, waiting in the shadows. The safe, I said, keeping my distance. Where is it? Behind Father's portrait in the study. His voice was rough. The combination is Lily's birthday. Of course it was. Elaine's final mockery, using my daughter's birth date to protect her secrets. Why help me now? Because I remember how she looked at him that night. Derek's hands trembled. Father was asking questions about the accounts. She told him to drop it. The next day. A car door slammed somewhere below. Derek's head snapped up. You need to go. Now. Too late. Footsteps surrounded us, echoing from multiple directions. Elaine emerged from behind a pillar, flanked by 2 security guards. "I'm disappointed, Derek." She sighed like a teacher with a failing student. "Though I suppose weakness runs in your father's blood." My phone buzzed, a message from Sophie. "Federal agents raiding mansion now. Stall them." "It's over, Elaine," I said. "The feds are at your house. They'll find everything." She smiled, the same smile she wore at my wedding. "You think I'd leave evidence in a safe? That's what safety deposit boxes in Geneva are for." She nodded to her guards. "Take care of this. Make it look like a domestic dispute gone wrong." Derek stepped forward. "Mother, stop!" The crack of gunfire split the air. Derek stumbled, red blooming across his chest. I screamed as he fell. "Such a disappointment," Elaine said softly. "Like father, like son." I dove behind a concrete pillar as more shots rang out. Derek lay motionless, his blood pooling on the concrete. My phone skittered away as I rolled, showing one final message from Sophie. "Police coming. Hold on." "You know what fascinates me, Luna?" Elaine's voice echoed through the garage. "How you actually thought you could win. That you could take my son, my company, my life's work." A bullet chipped concrete near my head. I scrambled to another pillar, trying to keep track of the footsteps approaching from multiple angles. "I built this empire from nothing," she continued, "sacrificed everything. And you thought you could destroy it with what? Some leaked documents, news articles." "You killed your husband," I called out, trying to buy time. "Your own son. For what? Money? For control." Her voice was closer now. "Something you never understood. In this world, you either control or are controlled. There is no middle ground." A guard appeared on my left. I kicked out, catching his knee. He fell with a grunt, his gun sliding across the concrete. I lunged for it, but a sharp pain exploded in my shoulder as another shot rang out. "Mother like daughter," Elaine said, standing over me as I clutched my bleeding shoulder. "Lily will learn the same lesson you never did, about power, about family, about sacrifice." "You'll never touch her." I spat blood, my vision blurring. "I already have." She smiled. "Who do you think has custody while you're here, having this tragic accident? By morning, she'll be on a plane to our house in Switzerland. A fresh start, away from all this ugliness." Sirens wailed in the distance. Elaine checked her watch. "Time to go, make it clean," she told the remaining guard. As she turned away, I saw Derek move. Just slightly, his hand inching toward his jacket. "You forgot one thing," I called after her. "About control." She paused. "Oh, sometimes." I met Derek's eyes across the concrete. "You lose it." The shot rang out. Elaine's eyes widened as she looked down at the red stain spreading across her expensive blouse. Derek's hand shook as he lowered the gun. "You—" she gasped. "Goodbye, Mother," Derek whispered, then his hand fell limp. The remaining guard fled as police sirens screamed closer. I crawled to Derek, pressing my hands against his wound. His pulse was weak, fading. "Lily," he gasped, "tell her, I'm sorry." "Tell her yourself," I said, but his eyes were already closing. Blue and red lights flooded the garage. As paramedics rushed in, I watched Elaine's blood mix with her son's on the concrete. The empire she built, the lives she destroyed, all ending here in a parking garage, with the wail of sirens as her requiem. My shoulder throbbed as darkness crept at the edges of my vision. The last thing I saw was Sophie's face appearing above me, her lips forming words I couldn't hear. The hospital lights flickered as I opened my eyes. Sophie sat beside my bed, dark circles under her eyes. 3 days, she said. "You've been out for 3 days." My shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat. "Derek?" "Critical condition. They don't know if—" She stopped as Marcus burst into the room. "They found it," he said, breathless. "The real safe, not in the study, in Elaine's private elevator shaft. Everything was there. James's murder, the offshore accounts, decades of blackmail. Elaine?" My throat felt like sandpaper. "Survived. She's under guard in the secure wing." Sophie's hands clenched. "But Luna, there's something else. Something worse." A detective appeared in the doorway, his face grim. Mrs. Brooks, we need to talk about your daughter. My heart monitor spiked. Where's Lily? Gone, Marcus said. Elaine's people moved her before the police arrived. Private jet to Switzerland, just like she threatened. I ripped out my IV, ignoring Sophie's protests. How long until they land? That's the thing, the detective said. The flight plan was fake. The jet diverted to a private airstrip in Mexico. The room spun as I stood. She's running with my daughter. Luna, you can't, Sophie started. Watch me. 6 hours later, I stood in a Mexican villa's courtyard, my shoulders screaming in pain. Marcus had traced Elaine's emergency protocols, finding this safe house. Sophie and local police surrounded the property, but I'd insisted on going in alone. Elaine sat by the pool, looking impossibly composed despite her bandaged wound. Lily played nearby, oblivious to the armed guards watching from the shadows. I wondered when you'd arrive, Elaine said, not looking up from her drink. Always so predictable in your maternal instincts. It's over. I moved closer, each step deliberate. The evidence is public. Derek's testimony when he recovers will bury you. Let her go. Derek, she laughed softly. My greatest disappointment. Did you know he cried the first time I made him sign those documents? Such weakness. Where's his father's weakness when he questioned your methods? Or your sister-in-law's when she threatened to expose you? Necessary sacrifices. Her eyes finally met mine. You never understood, Luna. Family isn't about love. It's about legacy, power, survival. No. I watched Lily splash in the shallow end, her innocent laughter cutting through the tension. Family is what you destroyed to build your empire, what you sacrificed for control, movement in the shadows, guards shifting positions. Elaine's hand moved slightly, a signal. Last chance, she said. Walk away, live. Lily will want for nothing, except her mother's love. Love? She stood, mask finally cracking. Love didn't build Brooks Industries. Love didn't secure our position. Love is a weakness I burned out of this family years ago. Then you failed. I stepped closer, because Derek loved his father enough to finally stop you. And I love Lily enough to die here if I have to. Her hand moved again, another signal, but no guards emerged. Your men won't come, I said. Marcus found your offshore accounts. They've already been paid to stand down. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Impossible. You taught Derek well, about power, control, survival. He gave us access before the shooting. Every account, every failsafe. Lily noticed me then, her face lighting up. Mommy? Don't move, Elaine snapped, but Lily was already running toward me. I caught her with my good arm as police flooded the courtyard. Elaine didn't resist as they approached, her empire crumbling around her. You'll never understand, she called as they led her away. What it takes to build something lasting. I held Lily tighter, breathing in her familiar scent. You're wrong. I understand perfectly. You build it with love, not fear, with truth, not manipulation, with family, not control. As we walked away, Lily chattering about her unexpected vacation, I thought about Derek fighting for his life in that hospital, about James Brooks questioning his wife's methods, about Marcus's sister choosing death over submission. The price of empire was written in their blood. But the cost of love, that was written in the tears on my daughter's cheeks as she hugged me, in the strength it took to break cycles of control, in the courage to choose truth over power. Some empires fall, others transform. And sometimes, from the ashes of control, something stronger grows, built not on fear, but on the very thing Elaine Brooks spent a lifetime trying to destroy. Love. The autumn wind rustled through the courtroom as Elaine Brooks stood for sentencing. Her designer suit hung loose on her frame, prison having stripped away her polished exterior. I sat in the back row, watching the woman who'd tried to destroy my life face her own destruction. Before sentencing, the judge said, Mrs. Brooks has requested to address the court. Elaine turned, her eyes finding mine. I built everything to last, she said, her voice carrying that familiar steel. to protect my family from becoming what I was, a nobody from nowhere, fighting for scraps. She paused, something almost human crossing her face. I thought I was making you all stronger. The judge's gavel fell like thunder, pronouncing 25 years. As they led her away, I thought about strength, about the different ways we break and rebuild. Outside the courthouse, Sophie waited with Lily, who was drawing pictures on the steps. Marcus stood nearby, his sister's photo pinned to his jacket, a silent witness to justice. "Ready?" Sophie asked. I nodded, but stopped at the sight of Derek being wheeled out of a hospital transport van. 4 months of recovery had aged him years. Our eyes met, and he gestured for me to approach. "The physical therapy's working," he said, touching his chest where the bullet had nearly taken his life. "Doctor says I might walk without assistance soon." Lily looked up from her drawing. "Daddy's getting stronger." "Yes," I said, watching them together. "We all are." Derek handed me an envelope. The last of the offshore accounts, transferred to a trust for Lily. And, he hesitated, Mother's journals, from before she married Father. I thought you should have them. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, I opened the journals. Elaine's early entries revealed a woman I'd never known, desperate, afraid, watching her own mother destroy their family through weakness and indecision. Page after page showed her transformation, each hardship building the walls that would eventually become her prison. My phone buzzed. Claire, the reporter. "Running follow-up story, interview." I declined. Some stories don't need more telling. Sophie brought tea, settling beside me. "Marcus is moving to the coast, says he needs a fresh start. And you?" She smiled, touching the ring on her finger. "Some ghosts are worth keeping close." Through the window, I watched Lily's swing sway in the wind. The same wind that had carried white rose petals on my wedding day, that had whispered through the parking garage during the shootout, that now carried away the last pages of Elaine's empire. Derek's physical therapy schedule sat on my desk, next to Lily's school registration forms. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps understanding. The line between protection and control, between justice and vengeance, was thinner than I'd imagined. "Luna," Sophie said softly, reading the journals over my shoulder. She was pregnant when she married James. A boy, stillborn. Suddenly, Elaine's obsession with legacy, with control, shifted into sharper focus. The child she lost became the empire she built, every decision aimed at preventing another loss. I closed the journal, thinking of Lily sleeping upstairs, of Derek learning to walk again, of Marcus honoring his sister's memory, of Sophie finding love in the aftermath of chaos. We all build empires of one kind or another, some of brick and money, others of memory and love, some to protect, others to control. The trick is knowing the difference. A noise upstairs, Lily calling out in her sleep. As I climbed the stairs, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. The woman who'd stood at that altar felt like a stranger now. She'd wanted revenge. I wanted something else. Something stronger than Elaine's empire had ever been. In Lily's room, I smoothed her hair, breathing in the quiet. On her nightstand sat a family drawing, Derek in his wheelchair, Sophie and Marcus holding hands, me standing tall. No perfect endings, no complete victories. Just people, broken and healing, choosing love over power, truth over control. Outside, the wind continued its eternal dance, carrying away the last whispers of Elaine's legacy. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own choices between protection and control. But tonight, in the quiet of hard-won peace, I finally understood what Elaine never could. True strength isn't in what we build to keep others out, but in what we build to let them in, 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 build to let them in.